Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Hess. As we approach the end of 2024, I've been getting a lot of questions from all of you through email, through comments, through LinkedIn. I'm getting a ton of your questions, and as my gift for the end of 2024, I wanted to go over some of these questions. Based on what you've already asked and all the information I already have, let's create a brand new Power App, and as we build it, you can ask more questions, leave it in the comments. Let's get into it. Brand new Power App today. All right, so I received an email and it was, hey, my name is blank. I didn't have permission to use your name, so I didn't want to say where you are, who you are, but they viewed one of my YouTube videos and they're working for the fire department in charge of distributing hundreds of radios. They want to make a power app. What's the best solution? So let's kind of focus in on some of these questions. We have a power app. They saw my power apps. They have a few hundred radios and they have other department areas. I thought a power app would be a best solution to do this. To make things easy, I wanted to create an app, distribute radios, and capture what person they are going to, along with rank, phone number, as well as the radio information, such as serial number and other few department numbers. Distributing accessories, so that's another big thing. So already to me, this is already two lists now because we're also doing accessories. So this is getting complex very fast. I want to keep track of those as well. I want to be able to auto-populate a template. So, okay, even more for a loan form. And then they would then receive an email. So, geez, okay. So the requirements are growing. If you've ever developed things, of course, you're going to realize that there is a thing called scope creep. And you kind of set you set the project requirements at the beginning, say, okay, this is what we're developing. We're going to do this in this amount of time. It's going to take us 2 months. And then people are like, oh, well, also can it do this? And also can it do that? And then, it ends up growing and growing and growing until it's unmanageable. So once you gather requirements, then get sign off from your users or your customer, right? Get them to sign off on and be like, this is what we're going to do for now. These other things are phase 2. So think about that. Maybe receiving an email is phase 2, but that's up for you to gather requirements and talk to your customer about. And then it keeps going. I want to have to track broken radios now. Okay, we got broken radios, and this would be separate. And if it's not too much, to be able to autofill the template for a broken radio form. This is what I'm trying to do. It's hard to explain. I already had a database of radios in Excel. So honestly, I don't like doing things in Excel. If you tell any functional consultant or any developer, they're going to say, Excel is not a database. Don't do Excel. We'll see how this goes. It did not have a list of people they're going to because the list changes a lot. So that's even more of a red flag to me for using Excel, right? The list changes a lot. People can break things. They might accidentally type in a letter or a number in the middle of that Excel document, and that is just a big red flag for using Excel. You could break your entire database. And where's your Excel saved? Is it saved in a SharePoint list? Does it have version history? These are all things you need to be thinking about. I don't want to have to keep track of it because it's over 200 people. Yeah, I don't either. Any assistance would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, so this is how I'm going to start off these series of videos is we're going to start building a Power App based on these requirements. And if you have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I think we're going to do collections. We're going to try and keep the forms simple. We're going to use the out-of-the-box forms as much as we can. Let's get into it. Maybe we'll change some things. And let's start with moving the data out of Excel and into SharePoint. Okay, so the first thing I did was I replicated like a database of radios. So I created a table of a bunch of, example data. And you say, well, how did you do this? Why did you take so much time to do this? All I did was I went to ChatGPT. I said, hey, give me 60 example rows of radios. I want these 4 columns and these are the options. Give me example test data. Now you can do this with Copilot also, especially when you're using Dataverse. So I just got a bunch of test data here and put it in Excel. Now we are not creating our app in Excel. If you want to, maybe that's another video. Just be like, Andrew, do Excel, and I'll have to do it. So We have a bunch of example Excel data for radios. Then I created a SharePoint list with the same exact columns. This comes up a lot as people are like, hey, how do I get my data from Excel to SharePoint? Now, there are other ways to do this. So let me just go over this real quick. When you create a new list, you can do new list from Excel. And let me show you why I don't like this. So from Excel, I'm going to upload. So I'm uploading that Excel document. And you can see I have single line text, title, single line text. This is actually a choice field. This is actually a choice field. And this is looking better than what it used to. And it's table, so you need a table. And then you click next. And let's just call it My Radios. And then we'll let SharePoint do its magic and create this for us. So 100% complete. Okay, so we have the data in here, right? Nice, beautiful data. Let me take a look at something. So when I go in here and I look at serial number, right there, that's it. Let me show you. This is what I hate. In SharePoint, whenever you create a column, there is the underlying data name of the column. So the underlying column name, and then there's the user-facing column name here. And right here, under one of the fields, not model, but serial number. Look here in the URL. You can see that it has field _1. And that drives me crazy. When I'm trying to do pro code development, and this field is now called field _1. In SharePoint, there's an underlying column name, and then there's the user-facing column name. And the underlying column name comes through as field _1. And me as a software developer, this drives me crazy when I'm trying to do work in the future. So that was my long-winded explanation about why I don't do from Excel when creating a list. Let me show you the way that I do this normally. The way that I do this, instead of using the out-of-the-box from Excel, is I create the columns exactly like I want them. I click Edit in Grid View. I then get my Excel data. Copy it all. Control C. Control C. There's a little spot somewhere right in here. Let me do it again. There's a little spot. It's somewhere in here. And I press Control V. And then I paste it in there. And you can see, oh, I have an error. Station D is not valid. So in my department code, because this is a choice field, edit, I need a station D with a space. Save. Okay. Okay. It looks like it's fixed it. Let's try it again. Find this spot in here. There's like a sweet spot to click. This may drive you crazy. There's a sweet spot to click. You paste it in there and you can see it's going through and saving all that data. Now, if you have a lot of columns, this may take a little bit of time, but you can see now I have all that data in there. And then let me do what I did before. So now I go to the gear icon, list settings. I look at serial number, and the underlying field name is serial number. This is very important to me as a developer who's been doing this a long time. This will become more important the more you do this. Now, if you're a beginner, you can let this go. But that's the way I like to upload my data from Excel, not by doing the out of the box. And you notice I don't have the nice little pill colors, you know, the choice colors that you have here. Let's see if this is even a choice field. Let's see, column. I did say choice. I thought, oh yeah, it is a choice. And look, it doesn't have my choices in there. So I'm going to delete this. I don't like the way that Microsoft does the upload from Excel. I like to do it the way I did it, copy, paste. I know it's a little bit more work, and I know there's like little tiny tweaks in there, like trying to click in the right spot. You may run into more issues, but that's the way that I like to do it. All right, so now we have a list. Let me refresh, make sure My Radios is gone. We have a list in a SharePoint site called Fire Department. and we have a list called radios. And it's all in SharePoint. We have all of our radios in SharePoint. So now let's go to Power Apps. Now I'm going to start recommending more and more to create your Power Apps as a solution, to create a solution instead of just creating your app here. So new solution, radios. The publisher is going to be me, and that looks good. We're going to create a new solution. And this gives me like a box of like a package of all my stuff. Like if I have flows related to it, which we may have, right? We may send an email through Flow, through Power Automate. So maybe there's environmental variables. Maybe there's things I want in my package of things. So I like to do a solution now. It's also easier to manage. It's the way to go. It's also easy to move a solution from one environment to another. So now I'm just going to do new app canvas. And this will be radios. So I'm kind of throwing you best practices in here. You don't have to listen to everything I do or say. I'm trying to get you on the right track. I would say this is intermediate level Power Apps now. We're not just beginner anymore. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to my data source. So I'm going to click on the data, which they changed. Add data. I'm going to do SharePoint. SharePoint, I'm going to connect to my new SharePoint site, which is called Fire Department. And we're going to connect to the radios list. And so now we've connected to our data. All right, so let's use an out-of-the-box feature that comes with Power Apps. And we can see these are all in preview. Some of these are nice. I'm going to go with sidebar. I'm going to do this mostly custom as we can. All right, so it did rename it Screen 2. I guess we'll call this Radios Screen, or maybe Screen Radios. All right, so Screen Radios. And on the left side, we're going to do let's do a new modern table. And on the right side, let's do our form. All right, and so we want to make sure this table takes up all the space that it needs. And so let's see, in the table, I'm going to make sure that its flexible height is on, so that takes up all the space. So now as we click on something in this form on the right side, so for your form on the right side, so click on your form on the right side, then in the advanced properties, or you could do it up here, you can go to items. So in the items at the top or on the right side in advanced, we want to find our table, which is here. And for me, it's called table 2. So table 2, this is where our items property comes in. It's table 2.selected. So whichever item we click on in our table, we're going to populate our form. So when we click on an item, we then populate our form, right? So that's why you need to fill in your items property on your form to relate it to your table. All right, so now let's change this to 2 columns. So the form, I want the columns to be 2. And that kind of, or we could do even 1. Let's do 1. So now we have left side, and we can change something. Let's see if we change this to fair. We can't save it yet. So let's create a save button. And think about this. Where do you want your save button? Probably, if you look at most apps, probably the save button is either in the top right or it's in the bottom right. I'm going to say, since we have this container up here, we already have a nice, beautiful container. Let's put our save button here. And we can make it a button. We can make it an icon. So we could easily just do an icon of save. So we can pick any icon we want. And then on the right side, we can change it to save. And then for this container, we're going to push it over to the right. We're going to make sure it's stretched out. And then I'm going to do a little bit of padding. We want a little bit of padding, maybe 100. Get off that edge, maybe too far, 50. So we have our save button. It does nothing yet. All right, so now let's make sure our save button does do something. So we have a form here. It's called Form 2. Let's rename it. Let's call it FRM Radio. And our save button is just going to submit form FRM Radio. All right, and that's it. That's all we're going to do. So now let's come to one. I guess this one, APX 6000XE. Let's change the condition to poor. Click Save. We can see it's saved there. Let's check out, and if I could remember which one we just did. We can refresh. And then I'm going to add in the column, show hide columns, modified. So we can see when I modified that. So we can see this one was modified a few seconds ago. So let's just kind of do newer. So we can see the APX 6000XE modified a few seconds ago is now changed to poor. So the APX 6000 SE, let's change it back to fair, save, come back to SharePoint. Let's watch right here, refresh. It's now fair. So we've already made this nice connection to our Power App. It works beautiful. We have literally done 50 to 60% of the work already, in my opinion. This is a ton of work that we've done already in this video. All right, so let's get back to the requirements. Capture what person they're going to. Well, let's add a field. All right, so add a column. Now, we can make a separate list and do all that manually. My opinion, people picker, that's why I use SharePoint. So my decision is, as the consultant, as the software developer, we're going to use the people picker. And it's going to be assigned to people picker, show profile photos. Okay, we'll turn that on in our SharePoint list here. And let's move that over. Okay, we now have assigned to column. So I'm going to go back to Power Apps, and I'm going to go to my data, and I'm going to refresh the data. And when I refresh the data, then you click on your form. Over on the right side, we have fields. Add field, assign to, add. All right, so now we have an assigned to with a people picker. And you notice it comes through with like numbers. That's not helpful. So let's click on here. So there's some new features that Power Apps kind of comes up with. And let me just go over these. Like when you click on something, maybe you accidentally closed your right side panel. Right here is your properties button. So you just click on your properties, reopen it, and we can see we're under our data card value 5. This is our assigned to, so let me get some more space in here. Data card here, data card value 5. And now in the fields, there's nothing in here. So in my combo box or my drop down, I don't see everything. And what I want to see is I want to see the display name. Add. So now when I click on assign to, we can see that I can assign it to someone. So XPR 3500E, save, go back to SharePoint, make sure it's arranged by a modified date, and we can see now it's been assigned to the person that I thought. Okay, so now let's see if there's, what else we can do. Let's see what else we can do rather quickly. A few hundred radios, capture person, rank, phone number, radio information, such as serial number, and other few department numbers, accessories. So let's just do the accessory. And as a consultant, this is where you need to think about this and pre-plan. Is the accessories, is that a new data source? Is that a whole new list? Or it is a checkbox, multi-pick checkbox. So I think for our decision for this one, we're going to make the accessory list an entire new data source or another SharePoint list. And one of the main reasons is because the accessories could have other metadata about them, right? Maybe you have an over-ear headphone and there's extra data about it. Maybe one's red, maybe one's black, maybe one's white. And you want to record that metadata, and it should be in a separate SharePoint list, and a multi-select checkbox is not going to do the job. So that's why we're going to have our accessories in a separate list. All right, so I created a very simple SharePoint list for accessories. And maybe we want to add a column for, the color. Let's do color. And this one is blue. Or let's use the same color as I said before. So red, black, white, and let's change the pill colors. So this one is red. Let's see, black, and then a white. So those are our colors for the headset. Then I also want to let's also show the ID column. This is going to be very important to us, the ID column. So I have 1, 2, 3. And let's fill out some colors in here. So let's do red, black, and white. And then I'm going to exit grid view. So I have a nice new SharePoint list. And this one is called accessories. In our radios, we also have radio ID here. I'm going to create a new field, and this is going to be a number field. This is a number field. And it's going to be accessory ID. And 0 decimal places, save. Okay, so I'm going to attach one in here on these two. So on 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm just going to put some data in there, and we're going to go back to Power Apps, okay? We're going to refresh our list and then add in the accessories data source. All right, so now we have radios that is refreshed, and we added in our accessories data source. And in our form, we're now going to add accessory ID. And we can see that on this one, we have an accessory ID of 2. So we have an accessory ID of 2. On this one, we have none. And now I'm going to create another field. So I'm just going to create another field in here. And to do that, I'm going to click on the form, and I'm going to say, add a custom card. So I added a custom card. And once again, I'm not saying this is the only way or the best way to do this. This is one way to do this, to add a custom card. So for right now and for today, we're only going to allow a one-to-one relationship. So one accessory per one radio. And we'll change this in the future, but that's going to have to be the next video. So we have the accessory ID is equal to 2. I'm going to add 3 fields. And these 3 fields are going to be title, model number, and color. And these are actually just going to be text values. So text, text, and text. So these are 3 text values, and they're going to line up, and let's make sure they have space. So make sure they have space. Oh, don't pin that. Sometimes I hate that. All right, so they have space. And the first one is going to look up, right? So we're going to look up what? We're going to look up the accessory. We're going to look up the accessory that is equal to this item. And that's the accessory ID is equal to the ID and show us the title. So we're just saying, hey, look up the accessory that is here attached to our SharePoint list, which we did do a 2. So you can see we have an accessory ID of 2 here. And so when it's equal to 2, bring us in the title. And for the next one, I want you to bring in the model number. And for the next one, I want you to show me the color. But because color is a choice field, we need to say color.value. So now we can see we have over-the-ear headset, the model number, and the color black. If we were to come to a different one, we can see accessory ID says over-the-ear headset, the model number is red. And so we can fill in the accessory ID. So we fill it in with 3. We click save. We go back to it. And we can see it's now populated those fields also with the lookup value. So I think this is where I'm going to leave off. We've done a lot of development here for about 20-30 minutes. And next week we'll continue. We'll maybe do multi-accessories per item that you can have, and this will change into like a gallery. But I wanted to show you how to use that lookup. I feel like that lookup feature is very valuable, especially if it's a one-to-one relationship, which means we have one radio, one accessory. It's always like that. This is a good way to do a lookup instead of doing a SharePoint lookup. So I'm going to leave you here. Thank you all for watching. If you have more questions or comments, leave them. I'm going to try and get through them through this Power App, and we're going to create this by the end of the year with a bang. 2024. Can't wait. Thank you. My name is Andrew Hess, and I'll see you next week.